The day my yacht went under. The water looked like molten gold. Sunset dripping across the bay like I had no idea a $15 million dream was dying beneath it. Polished teak, silk curtains, crushed champagne bottles, all drifting across the marina like confetti from someone else's victory party. And at the end of the dock stood Karen Whitmore, pink blazer gleaming like a war medal, pearls catching the last of the light, clipboard clutched like a weapon. She smiled, that tight, self-satisfied smile of someone who thought she'd just saved civilization. "Your yacht violates community standards," she said. "It's too big. You'll thank us later." I didn't shout, didn't move. I just watched the Odyssey sink. Slow, groaning, beautiful. Listening to metal twist and seagulls scream above. They thought they'd humiliated me, sung my pride, my peace, my life's work. But Karen didn't know one thing. She'd just destroyed a yacht sitting on my dock, in my marina. Before I tell you how it started, comment your city and time zone below and subscribe. Because what happened next? You won't believe it. They say a man's boat reflects a soul. If that's true, then the Odyssey was my redemption. 48 feet of polished steel and glowing teak, every inch built by my own hands. After 2 decades in the chaos of naval engineering, deadlines, boardrooms, impossible clients, I finally retired to Florida coast to live quiet. Sunrise, coffee, salt in the air. No noise, no drama. At least, that's what I thought. When I first saw Barras Marina, it looked like paradise. Water like glass, air thick with salt and sunscreen, pelicans circling over kids feeding fish. Retirees laughed over coffee on the boardwalk. Peace. Until I met the people who claimed to protect it. The Barras Homeowners Association. A council of retirees with clipboards and god complexes. And one woman who ruled them all, Karen Whitmore. Mid-50s. Tan lines shaped like entitlement. A voice sharp enough to slice through calm seas. She wore pastel suits, drove a white Lexus, and carried that clipboard like it was a constitution. Her perfume smelled like authority and bad decisions. The first time she saw the Odyssey, she appeared within minutes. Heels clicking down the dock like a metronome of judgment. "You must be the new owner," she said, lowering her sunglasses. "Lovely boat. Shame it's enormous." I smiled. 75 feet of craftsmanship, I said. Registered, licensed, insured, and perfectly legal. Her lips pinched like she'd just bitten into a lemon. This marina values aesthetics, modesty, proportion. It's about balance. Balance, I repeated, watching her admire her reflection in my chrome railing. Sure, I'll keep her balanced. That was our first meeting, and I already knew I'd just become her project. Within days, the letter started. Violation number 001. Your vessel obstructs the scenic view of Lot 17. Violation number 002. Noise complaint. Excessive generator operation at 6:42 p.m. Violation number 003. Visual disharmony. Vessel exceeds acceptable aesthetic parameters. Acceptable aesthetic parameters. I'd seen military contracts written with less nonsense. Still, I tried to play nice. At the next HOA meeting, Karen sat at the head of the table like a queen addressing her peasants. Her followers nodded at every word. When she reached agenda item number 3, the yacht problem, she looked straight at me. "Mr. Hayes, we appreciate your enthusiasm for the sea, but your vessel is overwhelming. It casts shadows on other docks. It affects resale value. We kindly request that you remove or replace it." Replace a $15 million yacht? I almost laughed. "Karen," I said calmly, "my permits are in order. My lease was signed before this meeting. And your marina guidelines don't specify size limits." Her smile stiffened. "We'll see about that." And just like that, I became public enemy number 1. They fined me for blue deck lights. Said my decorative lighting disrupted community harmony. One day, I came home to find a bright orange sticker on my gangway. Notice of noncompliance. Immediate action required. I peeled it off and taped it to my fridge like a trophy. But Karen wasn't satisfied with petty fines. She spread rumors, said my yacht leaked oil, scared off fish, blocked the view. Even my neighbors started whispering. Someone left a note on my truck. Move your boat before we make you. Then came the night they cut the power. I walked down the dock to find everything dark. No lights, no refrigeration, no security feed. The HOA had pulled the shore power line. The next morning, I found Karen sipping iced tea on her porch like a villain in a soap opera. We had to disconnect non-compliant vessels, she said sweetly. Community policy. Community policy? I asked, you mean your policy? She tilted her head. Same thing, really. I wanted to explode. But anger is currency, and I wasn't about to spend mine too early. So I smiled. Understood, I said. I'll make a note. And I did, in a notebook titled HOA Evidence. Every letter, every photo, every time she stepped 1 inch past my property line. Because Karen wasn't done. She called an emergency meeting to pass a new amendment. No watercraft exceeding 55 feet allowed within Marina. It passed, of course. Her loyal yes-men wouldn't dare oppose her. Then she mailed me the updated bylaws with a handwritten note. Effective immediately. Compliance expected within 10 days. 10 days to remove the Odyssey. I read it under the glow of my deck lights, waves licking against the hull. And for the first time, I almost admired her audacity. She'd changed the rules retroactively just to target me. But I didn't react. I analyzed, because what Karen didn't realize was this. The HOA didn't actually own the marina. They managed the clubhouse, parking lots, and gardens, but the docks, the waterfront, that land was leased from a private company, Bear Harbor Holdings, LLC. And that company, well, I happened to own it. I was a majority shareholder. The docks, the slips, the water rights, all mine. Karen and her HOA had been bluffing on borrowed land. That night, I stood on the dock, moonlight bouncing off the Odyssey's hull, and smiled for the first time in months. They wanted a war. They were standing on my battlefield. I opened my notebook and wrote one sentence. They don't own the water. Then I called my lawyer. Let's stay quiet for now, I told him. Let them think they've won. Because in HOA wars, silence isn't surrender. It's the sound of the tide turning. The notice was taped dead center on the Marina bulletin board, printed in bold, emotionless letters. Watercraft exceeding 55 feet are not permitted within Marina. All non-compliant vessels must vacate within 72 hours. And right beneath it, in elegant cursive, was her name, Karen Whitmore, HOA president. I took a slow sip of coffee and muttered under my breath, well, there it is. Around me, other boat owners whispered in tight circles. A few shot me sympathetic glances, but none dared speak up. Karen had a talent. She could turn fear into loyalty. The same people who cursed her in private would nod like obedient soldiers when she walked past. That's when I realized power doesn't always need logic. It just needs noise. By afternoon, another letter slid under my door, a final warning. It read like it came from a government agency. Failure to comply may result in removal, fines, and legal action under HOA community statutes. I called the number printed at the bottom, keeping my tone polite. Bayes, HOA. This is Karen speaking. Karen, hi. It's Michael Hayes. I said, got your letter. Quick question. Where exactly do you think your community statutes apply? She let out that slow, practiced laugh, the kind only bureaucrats and bad therapists seem to master. Oh, Michael, we both know your yacht is an eyesore. The community has spoken. If you don't comply, we'll handle it. Handle it? I echoed. Got it. Mind if I record this call? Click. She hung up. What followed over the next few days was pure theater. HOA members showed up in bright orange vests, clipboards in hand, strutting around like they were part of the Coast Guard. One guy even tried to measure my hull with a construction ruler and dropped it straight into the water. Karen stood behind him like a director on set, whispering orders into her phone. I just sat on my deck, sipping lemonade, watching the circus unfold. That night, I checked the Marina security feed and froze. 3 cameras were offline. Someone had tampered with them. So I replaced a memory card myself and set up my own hidden cameras, one near the gangway, one on the dock, and one facing the parking lot. Years of engineering had taught me how to think like a saboteur. Sure enough, the next morning, my power line had been neatly cut and the shore water supply disconnected. That was it. I went straight to the HOA office. The place looked like a parody of authority. Marble floors, fake plants, motivational posters about community spirit. Karen sat behind her desk like a queen in her court. Karen, I began keeping my voice steady. You've cut power to private property. That's a violation of state law. We're simply enforcing safety standards, she smiled. Safety? I leaned forward. You think yanking live electrical cables in the rain is safe? You're not welcome here, Michael, she snapped. The board has voted unanimously. Your yacht must go. Funny, I said, pulling out my phone, because according to county records, you don't own this dock. For the first time, her confidence cracked. Just for a second, a flicker of doubt. Then she recovered. The HOA governs all community areas. No, I said quietly. You manage them. And this marina isn't yours to manage. Her smile faltered. Then we'll see what the county says. And she did exactly that. Within 48 hours, I had inspectors crawling all over my yacht, a fire marshal, an environmental officer, 2 county agents. All anonymous complaints. All dead ends. Karen wasn't trying to win legally. She was trying to wear me down. Then came her real move, public opinion. The HOA Facebook page exploded. Millionaire blocks Marina access. Selfish outsider disrespects community. And the headline photo? My yacht, with the caption, When money floats, manners sink. By the weekend, hate mail was piling up. Someone even threw a rock to my truck window with a note that read, Move your ship or we will. For a moment, anger surged through me like the tide. But I reminded myself of my golden rule. Don't spend your anger early. Instead, I spent my nights digging. Property records, tax filings, HOA amendments. Every line of small print Karen had built her empire on. And that's when I found it. They'd been overstepping for years, charging maintenance fees without jurisdiction, collecting taxes illegally, even using community funds for private events. Karen's kingdom was built on sand. When I received her lawyer's cease and desist letter, claiming I defamed the HOA by mentioning my marina rights, I couldn't help but laugh. So I sent her a reply. Dear Mrs. Whitmore, please note your new marina rule violates Florida's state property law, Section 327.6. I'd recommend consulting an actual maritime attorney before further embarrassment. Respectfully, Michael Hayes, owner, Bayes Harbor Holdings, LLC. Not homeowner. Owner. That single word hit her like a storm. Within days, she called an emergency HOA meeting, packed with her loyalist reporters and cameras. Mr. Hayes claims ownership of the marina, she declared dramatically. That is categorically false. I walked to the podium, placed a thick folder down, and opened it, revealing the original notarized deed. You might want to check your sources, I said quietly. The crowd murmured. The reporter turned to her. Mrs. Whitmore, is this true? Karen's smile trembled. These documents are irrelevant. The HOA speaks to the community. But the room was already shifting. Her control was slipping. And Karen Whitmore didn't handle defeat well. That night, a tugboat appeared near my slip, men in reflective vests, ropes in hand. Rain hammered the docks. A new sign appeared overnight. HOA safety operation, vessel removal in progress. When I reached the pier, Karen was there, soaked in rain, flashlight in hand, directing her hired crew like she owned the ocean. What the hell are you doing? I shouted. Removing a non-compliant vessel, she yelled back. Community order must be restored. That's private property. Not anymore, she sneered. You had your chance to cooperate. The tugboat's horn roared as thunder split the sky. I didn't shout. I didn't stop her. I just lifted my phone, pressed record, and let her destroy herself on camera. Because sometimes the best revenge is proof. The steel cable went taut. The Odyssey groaned in agony as the tension rippled through her frame. The aluminum railing shrieked. The fender squealed against the dock. Stop, I yelled, waving my arms through the rain. You'll tear the hull apart. One of the workers hesitated, eyes darting toward Karen. Ma'am, maybe we should do it, she screamed. HOA authority overrides this nonsense. The tugboat's engine roared to life. The line strained, sparks flying where metal scraped metal. My yacht shuddered violently, her heartbeat pulsing through the wood beneath my boots. Then came a crack, loud, sharp final. The starboard cleat snapped clean off. The cable whipped through the rain like a steel serpent, slicing past one of the workers and smashing into a lamppost behind him. Glass exploded. Sparks hissed across the wet planks. Keep pulling. Karen shrieked. The tug pressed forward, dragging the Odyssey sideways. The hull groaned, deep and mournful, the kind of sound I'd only heard once before in the Navy, the sound of a vessel losing her soul. The deck lights flickered and went dark. Water surged over the sides, flooding the engine compartment. The Odyssey tilted, first 5 degrees, then 10, then 20. The storm howled like it was cheering her on. I waded closer, rain soaking through my jacket, filming everything with my phone. Karen, I shouted, you just committed felony property destruction. Don't you dare film me, she screamed back. This is an HOA operation. A flash of lightning froze the scene, her pink raincoat clinging to her, the terrified men wrestling the ropes, the tugboat belching smoke behind them. And then, with a slow, tragic elegance, the Odyssey sank. The stern dipped, the bow lifted slightly, and the sea swallowed her whole with one hollow gasp. Air hissed in the hull, bubbles rising through the black water. Floating debris, cushions, glass, fragments of railing, drifted across the surface. My yacht, my second chance. Gone. Karen stood at the edge of the dock, hair plastered to her face, mascara running like ink. You see? She shouted over the thunder. This is what happens when you defied the HOA. I said nothing. I just walked past her, slow and deliberate, like a man walking away from a burning bridge. My boots echoed against the drenched planks. The tugboat crew stepped aside, eyes wide with regret. At the end of the dock, I turned back once. Hope your clipboard's waterproof, I said quietly. You'll need it in court. And then I left. By morning, the storm had passed, leaving behind eerie calm and floating wreckage. Bits of fiberglass glimmered, like seashells near the pylons. Seagulls perched on the remains of my railing. And there she was, Karen Whitmore, standing tall for the cameras, makeup caked over the cracks, giving her grand speech. Last night's unfortunate incident, she declared, was a necessary act of community safety. The yacht was unstable and posed environmental risks. We did what we had to do. The reporter nodded, pretending to understand. And the owner? He was uncooperative, Karen sighed dramatically. We just hope he'll realize that rules exist for everyone's good. I watched the broadcast from my office, calm, coffee in hand, the scent of salt and diesel in the air. My phone buzzed endlessly, emails, messages, articles. The HOA had issued an official statement, claiming they acted with county approval. They even attached a document stamped Emergency Safety Enforcement. Only, it wasn't from the county. It was printed on HOA letterhead. Sloppy, predictable, illegal. I didn't post. I didn't argue. Not yet. Instead, I made 4 calls to my insurance agent, my lawyer, the State Maritime Authority, and the FBI's local office. Dana, my insurance rep, sounded sympathetic until she read the HOA's claim. Mr. Hayes, she said carefully, if the incident is classified as a community safety measure, your coverage might be, Dana, I interrupted. That dock, that water, and that yacht are mine. The HOA had no jurisdiction. Send an investigator. Bring a camera. A pause. Then, understood. By the end of the week, investigators swarmed the Marina, taking photos, collecting samples, measuring tugboat tracks in the sandbar. When they questioned Karen, she had no permits, no county authorization, nothing but memos and self-made safety policies. Meanwhile, I built my case frame by frame, video footage, audio recordings, HOA documents. Every illegal thread of her empire was now in my hands. When Elaine Porter, my lawyer, a sharp, silver-haired woman with a calm smile, reviewed the evidence, she whistled low. "She's cooked," Elaine said. "Completely cooked. What do you want to do?" "Nothing," I replied. "Nothing? Michael, she destroyed your property." "I know, but if I move now, she'll play the victim. Let her enjoy the spotlight a little longer." Elaine smirked. "You've done this before." "Not with boats," I said. "With people." Days later, Karen was still basking in her so-called victory. She hosted a community brunch to celebrate the restoration of aesthetic harmony. There were banners, balloons, even branded napkins that read, "Clean Marina, clear conscience." Neighbors posed for photos. The local paper ran the headline, "HOA restores order after yacht dispute." And I showed up, quiet, sunglasses, rain jacket. The chatter faded as I walked in. Karen's smile faltered for just a second, then returned, brittle and painted on. "Mr. Hayes," she greeted, syrup sweet. "So good to see you. I assume you've come to make peace." "Something like that," I said, handing her an envelope. Inside, a formal notice of trespass and property destruction, bearing the logo of Bayes Harbor Holdings. "Effective immediately," I said softly. "The Bayes HOA and its officers are prohibited from conducting any operations within Bayes Marina." She blinked, trying to keep her composure. "You can't issue this." "I can," I replied, smiling faintly. "I own the marina." Her laugh was forced, shaky. "That's ridiculous." "Check the county records," I said, turning toward the door. "I'll wait." Silence fell across the room, heavy and suffocating. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. When I walked out, I knew the cracks in her empire had finally begun to show. And sometimes silence after humiliation is louder than any storm. For the first time since I'd moved into Bayes, I could walk the docks without hearing her voice echo over the water. Her pastel blazers were gone. Her army of clipboard loyalists vanished. But I didn't relax. Silence doesn't always mean peace. Sometimes it means a storm is coming back. I leaned back in my chair, the faint hum of the diner's old ceiling fan filling the silence. A slow smile crept across my face. "So, they've been governing a place they don't even own?" Elaine's lips curved into a knowing smirk. "Exactly. And that's not all." She flipped open a binder thick with years of HOA financial statements. They've been funneling community funds into Marina for years. Dock repairs, water maintenance, beautification. All for property they had no legal control over. I stared at the columns of numbers. Each line item a quiet confession. "Fraudulent allocation of funds," Elaine said. "If we take this to the state attorney's office, Karen's entire board could be charged." I stirred my coffee slowly, watching the ripples. "Let's not rush it. I want to know how deep this rot really goes." Elaine raised a brow. "You're planning something, aren't you?" I smiled faintly. "Always." Over the next few days, I began assembling my team, not soldiers, but professionals who understood the art of quiet warfare. First came Blake Turner, a forensic accountant with a reputation for sniffing out corporate skeletons. He once uncovered a $2 million embezzlement case in Palm Beach. The kind of man who found excitement in decimal points and deceit. Then there was Lydia, a private investigator with eyes everywhere and words nowhere. She moved in silence and spoke only through results. Within 48 hours, she'd already dug up property liens, HOA payment trails, and tax filings, all pointing to one truth. Karen's tugboat stunt wasn't just cruel. It was criminal. When her report hit my inbox, I nearly laughed. The HOA had used the community storm repair fund to pay for the tugboat, money taken from residents' dues. The invoice? A fake. Karen had claimed the Odyssey was debris left from last year's hurricane, a storm that never even touched our county. And to top it off, she paid the tugboat company through her own private account. I stared at the screen, feeling a cold satisfaction spread through me. She didn't just sink my yacht. I muttered, she used stolen money to do it. Elaine's reply was instant. That's embezzlement, wire fraud, and property destruction. You could file federal charges right now. But I wasn't ready. Not yet. I wanted this to be permanent. Not just a scandal, but a collapse. 2 weeks later, Karen reappeared. Not in power, but in denial. She strolled through Marina again with her little white poodle, sunglasses hiding sleepless eyes. The swagger was gone. Then came her desperate attempt to spin the narrative, an email blast titled, "A Message from Your HOA President," setting the record straight. It was a masterpiece of delusion. She accused me of spreading misinformation, attached a fake letter claiming HOA oversight of Marina, complete with mismatched fonts and forged signatures. It reeked of panic. Residents began forwarding it to me, asking, "Is this true?" I didn't respond. Not yet. I let doubt do the heavy lifting. Meanwhile, Blake and Lydia kept digging, and what they found would bury her. For 5 years, Karen had been redirecting HOA maintenance funds into a hidden shell account. Landscaping, security upgrades, holiday decorations. All fake. The money went to resorts, luxury shopping, and a second home in Naples, under her cousin's name. It was time. Elaine drafted the complaint. A stack of charges long enough to drown a career. Property destruction, federal level. Wire fraud. Misappropriation of community funds. Falsification of documents. Conspiracy to defraud. Filed neatly under Bayes Harbor Holdings LLC versus Bayes HOA. The irony? They'd spent years pretending to regulate me. But my favorite move came next. Using my ownership rights, I called a special shareholder meeting. A formality for Bayes Harbor Holdings, the company that technically leased a marina to the HOA. Karen and her loyal board arrived at the county office looking confused, but cocky. "Mr. Hayes," she started, "this meeting is out of order. The HOA charter clearly states." "This isn't an HOA meeting," I interrupted, sliding a folder across the table. "This is a corporate compliance review. You're here as tenants." Her face froze. "Tenants?" "Yes," I said calmly. "You've been leasing the marina for 8 years without paying maintenance fees or renewing your license. Technically, you've been trespassing since 2019. Her treasurer paled. "Kara, is that true?" Her glare could have burned through steel. Effective immediately, I said, standing. "The HOA's access to Bayes Marina is revoked. Docks, storage, utilities, all under new management." Karen slammed her hand on the table. "You can't do this." I smiled. "I already did. You'll find the notice posted next to your emergency regulation sign." Her face flushed red with fury. "You'll regret this, Michael. I have connections." "No," I said softly, gathering my files. "You had connections. What I have is evidence." Elaine leaned in, her voice sharp as glass. "And Karen, I'd advise against deleting any emails. Federal investigators don't take that lightly." Her eyes widened. "Federal?" Elaine slid her a folder. "Department of Justice. You'll be hearing from them soon." That night, for the first time in months, the marina was silent. The water was calm, moonlight rippling across the surface like silver ink. But I knew this wasn't the end. People like Karen never surrender. They self-destruct. Sure enough, 2 days later, she tried one last act. A local TV crew filmed her at the marina, crocodile tears glistening. "He destroyed my life," she cried. "That yacht was unsafe. I was protecting families." But this time, I had something she didn't. Proof. When the segment aired that evening, the news anchor ended with a single devastating line. "Bayes HOA may face criminal investigation for fraud and property destruction. Federal authorities are reviewing evidence." By morning, the HOA office was empty. Karen's poodle was gone. Her pink Lexus, too. But you can't outrun justice. It moves slowly, but it moves like a tide. A week later, Elaine called. "The FBI's Property Crimes Division wants to meet. IRS, too. You've got a case." "Good," I said. "Let's make sure they have everything." "Oh, they do," she chuckled. "You kept better records than most police departments." I smiled faintly, gazing out at the marina where the Odyssey once rested. The water shimmered peacefully, quiet, patient, waiting. Karen tried to drown my dream. Now it was her turn to sink. Elaine stood tall, giving Karen a faint, knowing smile, the kind you reserve for someone who still thinks they're winning a game that's already over. Karen adjusted her blazer and waved politely at the reporters outside, flashing her best tragic heroine smile. Elaine smirked. She still thinks this is just another HOA meeting, she whispered. Let her, I said quietly. The camera isn't a friend anymore. Inside, the courtroom buzzed like a low hum. I spotted familiar faces, neighbors who once clapped when the HOA fined me for having a few string lights that didn't fit community aesthetics. Now, they sat whispering among themselves, curiosity replacing judgment. They wanted to see how the tables had turned. The bailiff called out, "All rise." Judge Evelyn Mercer entered, late 60s, sharp eyes, zero patience for theatrics. I liked her immediately. Karen's attorney, a loud man with a Florida tan and an ego to match, launched into his speech. "Your Honor, this case is about community safety," he declared dramatically. "My client acted only to protect the residents of Bayes from a dangerous, oversized vessel." Judge Mercer arched an eyebrow. "You're telling me your client ordered the destruction of a $15 million yacht for safety?" He hesitated but nodded. "Yes, Your Honor." She leaned forward. "Do you have any legal statute granting an HOA the power to conduct maritime removals?" He stammered. "Well, the bylaws, she interrupted sharply, "do not override state law." "Try again, counsel." You could almost hear the man's confidence deflate. Elaine rose calmly. "Your Honor, the plaintiff would like to present Exhibit A." She gestured, and the courtroom screens flickered to life. Security footage rolled. Rain pouring, thunder cracking, and there was Karen, drenched, screaming at the dockhands. "Push it off the dock." Gasps echoed. The judge's eyes narrowed. "That's her voice." Elaine nodded. "Yes, Your Honor." And if you listen closely, the tugboat operator asks if they have legal clearance, to which Mrs. Whitmore replies, and I quote, "HOA authority overrides this nonsense." A wave of whispers rippled through the gallery. Someone muttered, "Oh, she's done." Karen shifted in her seat, her lawyer turning pale. Elaine continued, "Exhibit B, financial records. The HOA paid the tugboat company through a private account under Mrs. Whitmore's name, labeled as storm debris removal. There was no storm that week. We confirmed this with the National Weather Service." The judge scribbled notes, her face unreadable. "And Exhibit C, the Marina deed. Bayes Harbor Holdings, LLC, registered under my client's ownership. Meaning," she said, turning to the bench, "the HOA had zero authority to remove anything from that dock." Judge Mercer looked up, voice steady and cold. "So, Mrs. Whitmore, to clarify, you destroyed private property on land and water you didn't own, using misappropriated community funds?" Karen's voice trembled. "That's not true. The Marina is part of our community. We've always managed it." "Managed," the judge cut in sharply, "is not the same as owned." Karen's face flushed crimson. "I was protecting property values." The judge's tone hardened. "By sinking a yacht?" The courtroom erupted in murmurs. Karen's lawyer scrambled. "Your Honor, my client acted under a mistaken belief of authority." Elaine didn't miss a beat, which would still make it negligence at best and fraud at worst. The judge nodded gravely. "Proceed." For 2 relentless hours, Elaine dismantled the defense, piece by piece. Email chains, text messages, bank statements, all exposing Karen's reign of arrogance. She had mocked residents, bullied board members, and used over $80,000 of HOA funds for her leadership vehicle, vacations, and spa retreats. When Elaine finally closed her binder with a firm snap, it echoed like a gavel. "The plaintiff rests, Your Honor." The judge turned to Karen's side. "Defense?" Her lawyer looked like a man awaiting a storm. "Your Honor, we request the short recess." "Granted," the judge said. 10 minutes. Karen leaned in, whispering furiously, her manic hand gestures slicing the air. At one point, she pointed directly at me, her eyes burning with panic. Her lawyer shook his head. The air between them was thick enough to choke on. When court resumed, his voice had softened. Your Honor, the defense wishes to propose a settlement. Mrs. Whitmore will issue a public apology, resign, and pay restitution. Elaine folded her arms, unimpressed. Denied, I said before she could answer. The judge's eyes flicked toward me. With respect, Your Honor, I said, standing, this isn't about money or apologies. It's about accountability. She destroyed my yacht, harassed residents, and abused her power for years. If she walks away with a fine and a headline, she'll do it again, somewhere else. Silence, the kind that presses on your chest. The judge nodded slowly. Understood. Proceed with judgment. An hour later, her ruling hit like thunder. The HOA was found guilty of property destruction, fraud, and misuse of funds, ordered to pay full restitution. $22.4 million. Karen herself faced separate criminal charges, wire fraud, falsifying documents, and misuse of community accounts. Judge Mercer's final words were ones I'll never forget. Let this serve as a reminder. Authority without ownership is just arrogance wearing a name tag. The gavel struck, and for the first time in a long time, I could breathe. Karen sat frozen, her pearls hanging crooked, her confidence shattered. Reporters swarmed as we stepped outside. Mr. Hayes, any comment? I stopped, smiled faintly. They said my yacht was too big. I told them. Turns out their ego was bigger. Sunlight washed over the courthouse steps. Elaine handed me the final document, stamped and sealed. Congratulations, she said softly. You just won something worth more than any yacht. I laughed under my breath. Maybe, but I still miss the damn boat. She smirked. Then build another one, just make it bigger. By evening, the news had spread everywhere. HOA president found liable in multi-million-dollar yacht case. The video of Karen screaming, "Push it off," went viral. Millions of views in a week. Memes flooded the internet. Her face beside captions like, "When HOA Karen meets the Coast Guard." Within days, her board resigned. Their insurance company dropped them. And for once, Bayes Harbor slept peacefully. No fines, no threats, no HOA Karen. Just the sound of the waves and the quiet satisfaction of justice served. Their accounts were frozen within days. Karen's mansion went up for sale, but no one wanted it. She had become radioactive, the suburban cautionary tale no one dared live next to. As for me, I went back to the Marina. The dock was quiet again, the water calm, a mirror reflecting the deep orange of the evening sky. The space where the Odyssey once rested lay empty, but not for long. In the distance, I saw construction crews setting up scaffolding, the first steps toward rebuilding. New project? One of the workers asked. Yeah, I said, eyes on the horizon. Something unsinkable. The morning after the verdict, Bayes felt different. Not peaceful, just stunned. The kind of silence that follows an explosion when people are still figuring out what's left standing. For years, Karen's voice had been the soundtrack of the neighborhood. Her heels clicking down the street, her clipboard snapping, her endless speeches about preserving harmony. Now her office sat dark. The blinds were shut, the mailbox overflowed with angry letters, and a faded banner on the clubhouse door still read, Bayes HOA, together we shine. The shine part had peeled off. That morning, I got a voicemail from Gary, the old treasurer who'd always nodded along to Karen's every word. His voice trembled. Michael, we're sorry. We didn't know half of what she was doing. If there's anything we can do to make it right. I deleted it, not out of anger, just closure. Some things don't need a reply. By noon, the news vans were back. The story had gone national. Headlines screamed across screens. HOA president destroys $15 million yacht. Gets destroyed in court. The Karen who sank her own reputation. Homeowner outsmarts HOA in legendary legal reversal. And the internet did what it does best. Someone edited the yacht footage with the Titanic theme. Another remixed her Push It Off, screaming to a dance track. HOA dropped the boat remix. 500,000 views in 3 days. Irony, at last, had caught up to her. That afternoon, Elaine called. The restitution funds are processing, she said. You'll get $16 million up front, the rest in installments, assuming she doesn't declare bankruptcy. Can she? I asked. She can try, Elaine said dryly. But fraud and destruction judgments aren't dischargeable. The law has a sense of humor sometimes. I laughed, watching a pelican land on one of the new pylons. Karma's got good lawyers. A week later, county officials arrived. Karen's empire was a house of cards. Unpaid taxes, fake invoices, missing funds. The IRS opened an inquiry. The FBI added charges, mail fraud, obstruction. The entire board resigned. Their once busy Facebook page, filled with posts about lawn heights and recycling bins, went silent. Bayes had no HOA now. No more fines, no inspections, no pastel blazers patrolling for violations. For the first time, the neighborhood was free, and it terrified them. A few days later, a young couple from Lot 9 approached me at the Marina, the same ones who once backed Karen's petitions. "Mr. Hayes," the husband said nervously, "we just want to thank you for standing up to her. We didn't think anyone could." His wife smiled shyly. "She fined us $300 last year because our hydrangeas were too vibrant." I chuckled. "I'd refund you myself if I could." She laughed. "We'll settle for seeing her gone." Not everyone shared the sentiment. A handful of Karen's diehards launched an online campaign. Restore order to Bayes, claiming the neighborhood would collapse without the HOA. Their first rally drew 6 people. 2 left when they realized no one was filming. A week later, I stood once more on the dock where everything began. The storm, literal and metaphorical, had finally passed. The wreckage was gone, replaced with clean rails and polished boards. The new boathouse gleamed under the morning sun, built stronger, smarter, and entirely mine. A new sign hung proudly, Odyssey Harbor, private property management by Hayes Maritime Holdings. And below in small print, community access by invitation only. It wasn't revenge. It was justice, packaged neatly in corporate policy. Standing there, I felt peace, the kind that doesn't roar but hums quietly beneath the waves. No anger, no adrenaline, just calm. Elaine appeared behind me, coat fluttering in the sea breeze. She handed me a folder. "FBI's final update," she said. "They've filed charges. 2 counts of fraud, 1 of property destruction, 1 of tax evasion. Karen's facing up to 30 years. I opened it, scanning the lines. One note caught my eye. Subject attempted to delete files. Recovered through cloud backup. I grinned. Of course she did. Elaine smiled softly. "You did it, Michael. You won." I shook my head. "No, we restored balance. That's better than winning." That evening, I hosted a quiet gathering at the Marina. No cameras, no reporters. Just friends, neighbors, and the workers who help rebuild. Good food, good music. The sound of waves instead of courtroom echoes. We toasted to new beginnings. Someone joked, "You should run for HOA president." Everyone laughed, even me. As the sun melted into the water, I looked at the empty slip where the Odyssey once floated. The reflection shimmered gold, the same hue as the day she sank. But it didn't hurt anymore. 2 months later, word came that Karen's mansion had been foreclosed. She'd sold her Lexus, her jewelry, her tailored suits, everything. Last I heard, she was renting a small apartment near Tampa, awaiting sentencing. A news crew spotted her in gray sweats, pushing a grocery cart full of discount cereal. The internet had a field day. One meme read, "When you lose the yacht war and end up in aisle 5. Cruel, maybe, but fitting." Meanwhile, Bayes began to heal, without the HOA breathing down their necks. People helped each other again. The same neighbors who once filed complaints now shared ladders, tools, and cups of coffee. The lawns grew a little wilder. The houses, a little more human. And somehow, it looked better that way. One afternoon, as I checked the new dock sensors, Gary showed up again. "Hey, Michael," he said awkwardly. "We're forming a new community association. Voluntary this time. More about cooperation than control. You should join." I raised an eyebrow. "You sure you want me on the board?" He chuckled. Honestly, we'd feel safer if you were. That night, I sat at the edge of the dock, legs swinging over the water. The air smelled of sawdust and salt. Fresh construction, fresh starts. I thought about the Odyssey, how something beautiful had to sink, so something stronger could rise. In the distance, lights flickered at the shipyard where my new vessel was being built. Bigger, bolder, reinforced. The builders had named it Project Phoenix. Not my idea, but fit. I gazed at the stars reflected on the water and thought about Karen, about pride, power, and how easily arrogance drowns when it refuses to float with truth. Maybe that was our difference. She built her power on fear. I rebuilt mine on patience. The storm had taken my yacht, but it also stripped away every illusion. Now, under the glow of the Marina lights, I realized something simple and final. I didn't just beat an HOA. I reclaimed my peace, and that was worth far more than $15 million. 6 months later, the Marina no longer looked like a battleground. The air smelled of varnish and sea breeze, not diesel and rage. On calm mornings, fog rolled in like silk, wrapping the docks in gold. And right there, floating where the Odyssey once stood, was her successor, the Phoenix. Bigger, stronger, quieter, a 90-foot testament to second chances. Her hull shimmered like molten bronze, her name etched in silver script. But she wasn't just a yacht. She was a statement, a promise whispered to the waves. You can try to drown me, but I'll rise again anyway. On her christening day, I invited only those who mattered, no press, no speeches. Elaine showed up in a blue sundress, pretending she wasn't tearing up. Gary brought a cooler of beer. The shipwrights wore their work boots like medals. Gary looked around, shaking his head. Never thought I'd say this, he muttered. But this place looks better without HOA signs everywhere. I smiled. Freedom always looks better, Gary. We raised our glasses as the sun bled orange across the bay. I swung the champagne bottle against the bow, not too hard, just enough to mark the beginning of something new. The crowd cheered. Someone shouted, "Long live the Phoenix." The gulls seemed to echo it overhead. But that morning, before the ceremony, I'd received an email from the U.S. Attorney's Office. Subject line, United States versus Whitmore, sentencing summary. Karen Whitmore, guilty on all counts. Fraud, property destruction, tax evasion, 25 years. No parole. The judge's final words were poetic. This court finds that Mrs. Whitmore weaponized community trust and authority for personal power, and in doing so, destroyed the very harmony she claimed to protect. I looked out over the bay, where the Phoenix glowed in the fading light, a reminder that some storms don't end you, they rebuild you, and sometimes the only way to rise is to sink first. The morning after the verdict, Bayes felt different. Not peaceful, just quiet. The kind of quiet that comes after an explosion, when the dust is still settling and people are still figuring out what's left standing. Karen's mansion sat like a ghost, blinds drawn, mailbox overflowing, a faded banner still clinging to the clubhouse door. Bayest HOA, together we shine. The shine had peeled off. Her empire was gone. Frozen accounts, empty hallways, silence where her heels used to echo. I went back to the Marina. The dock was still, the water smooth and orange under the evening sky. The slip where the Odyssey once rested was empty, but not forever. Construction crews had already started rebuilding. New project, one of them asked. Yeah, I said, watching the waves roll in. Something unsinkable. Within days, headlines exploded. HOA president destroys $15 million yacht. Gets sunk in court. Karen had become the suburban cautionary tale no one wanted to live next to. Memes, remixes, edits. The internet had finally caught up to her. And irony, it seemed, had better lawyers. Elaine called that afternoon. The restitution funds are already processing, she said. You'll recover $16 million up front. I chuckled. Guess karma's got a billing department now. Then came the audits. Turns out Karen's perfect little kingdom had been built on fake invoices, missing funds, and unpaid taxes. The FBI opened their files wider. The IRS joined in, and one by one, the board members resigned. Bayes had no HOA now. No more fines. No more pink blazer patrols. And for the first time, people were free. A young couple from Lot 9 came to see me. Nervous. Grateful. She fined us $300 because our flowers were too bright, the wife said. I laughed. I'd refund you myself if I could. She smiled. Just seeing her gone is enough. Some of Karen's loyalists tried to rally. 6 people showed up. 2 left when they realized no one was filming. By the end of the week, the wreckage was gone. A new boathouse stood where destruction had started. Polished rails, clean pylons, fresh air. A sign gleamed under the sunset. Odyssey Harbor, private property. Managed by Hayes Maritime Holdings. Below it, smaller letters read, community access by invitation only, not revenge. Just boundaries, wrapped neatly in corporate policy. Elaine came by, coat fluttering in the breeze. The FBI filed charges, she said. Fraud, destruction, tax evasion. She's facing 30 years. I smiled faintly. You did it, she said. No, I replied. We restored balance. That night, I stood on the dock again. Calm water, orange sky. For the first time, I wasn't angry, just still. 6 months later, Bayes was reborn. The lawns grew wild. The people laughed again. The same neighbors who once filed complaints now shared tools and painted fences together. Freedom. It turned out, looked better untrimmed. When my new yacht, the Phoenix, was christened, there were no reporters. Just friends, neighbors, and a quiet breeze over the bay. Elaine teared up. Gary, the old treasurer, brought beer. Never thought I'd say this, he said, but this place looks better without HOA signs. I laughed. Freedom always does. As I smashed the ceremonial bottle across the bow, the sunset turned the water gold. Someone shouted, "Long live the Phoenix!" And the gulls echoed it overhead. That same morning, I got an email, United States versus Whitmore, sentencing summary. Convicted on all counts. 25 years. Poetic justice. But when I read it, I didn't feel joy, just stillness. The kind that comes when everything's been washed clean. Later, a letter arrived. Postmarked from a federal facility. Karen's handwriting, neat, sharp, proud even now. Mr. Hayes, they tell me you rebuilt the Marina. Congratulations. You were right about the law, wrong about me. I didn't want to destroy you. I just wanted to prove I mattered. When people stop listening, you start screaming. Enjoy your ocean. Mine's smaller now, but it's quiet. I folded the letter carefully and placed it in my drawer. Not forgiveness, just closure. As months passed, Odyssey Harbor became something greater. Half marina, half veteran training center. Every dollar she tried to steal went into rebuilding lives. The old HOA office turned into a maritime museum. Outside, someone spray painted beneath the sign, HOA rules enforced, not anymore. I let it stay. One December night, I took the Phoenix out under the stars. The sea was calm, the air salt and light. I thought back to the Odyssey, to the day she sank. I realized, sometimes you have to lose what you built to remember why you built it. Power isn't control. Power is knowing when to let go. People focus on the revenge, the trial, the memes. But the real story? It begins after the noise fades, when you're left with silence, a hammer, and a choice. Rebuild or walk away. I chose to rebuild, not to prove her wrong, but because rebuilding, quietly, steadily, is the purest revenge of all. It says, you didn't break me, you refined me, and when the tide finally turned, I learned one final truth. The ocean never stays angry for long. Storms pass, wreckage fades, but peace rebuilt by your own hands, that lasts forever.